Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time, so much for your patience, and welcome along then to the Pacific Grand Prix. You are joining us in a hectic qualifying session as we just get underway, ready to get racing for the first time in what feels like forever. Now we're just going to do some quick stream checks while everyone is getting ready to go racing. Now, the first thing I'd like to address more than anything is in terms of the quality you guys will be noticing this evening. Now, all that is in regards to is we had some issues with the Elgato, which is why there was no stream for round 7 or round 8. We have now temporarily fixed those by using the PlayStation official one. Bear with me just one moment. Just turning the microphone up a smidge for you guys because I noticed it's very quiet on the stream compared to these absolutely thunderously loud machines going around in our qualifying session. So with that all being said, the stream are back on a temporary basis using the PlayStation functionality, so everything looks a bit dimmer, and everything obviously in terms of replays don't work as well. So I do apologise for that unfortunate set of circumstances, which we really don't have any control over. But we're working on that. We are working on that, so things will get better. Just for the time being, things are as they are. But this is round 9 to bring you up with what happened in round 7 and round 8. We had a very crazy couple of races where I believe it was Ayrton Senna took both the victories. And yes, it was, no, sorry, Chillakiller won. He's got his debut win in Belgium, in Spa-Francorchamps, the man we're watching at the moment. So he'll be looking to try and continue that sort of trend going forward. And he'll be more than happy to get everything underway, I am sure. But it is wet qualifying, and it will be a wet race here for the Pacific Grand Prix. So significant delays, which again, they're one of those things where it's a bit of an unfortunate circumstance, but not really something we have much control over. We was trying to ensure the most cars on the grid as possible, and well, an extra bit of pressure for these guys as they look to, well, quite frankly, find time where they didn't know they had it. All the pressure's on. Could lead to a mixed up grid. Let's see if that is the case. Now we're just making sure everything is set up so we don't have any problems going forward. Chillakiller, first man to set a time with a 152.1, goes into the pits immediately. And you can see Dougie Abraham and Ayrton Senna set the same, pretty much the same time at the same time. Chillakiller firmly in control at the moment. Next up to the line looks like it's going to be xxkillshotzxx. No one looking long back straight to try and topple Senna off the top. Does not work. Doesn't even get him second. Great result so far from Moju, really putting in the times to get into 4th. Abandoned 7 been struggling with the conditions pretty much all weekend. Man having a good run in the Spa 24 hours on iRacing. Will he be able to transfer any of that pace and consistency over to the rain? It's not looking likely so far. He's really struggled. Pinar Warrior slots it into P6. xxkillshotzxx goes for a spin. Tries to find a way by, but there's yellow flags. That will distract some of the drivers, especially if xxkillshotzxx is just stuck there now waiting for everyone to come by, and that's really going to affect his time. Mr. Ralph did slot the car up into 2nd position on his latest attempt. Finally found what we was looking for on the computer, so again, apologies for that. Perfect, perfect. So we're all good to go in that regard. Fantastico, fantastico. So, not many people in the chat at the moment, that's fine. It was a bit of an impromptu stream. I wasn't expected to stream, but it'll make for good playback nonetheless. So, Ayrton Senna wasn't able to improve on that lap. He will go for one final attempt. For people like Mr. Ralph, though, you've got to be quite worried because that is a lot of traffic you're coming up to at the slowest part of the circuit on your final lap. Chillakiller has finished. He can only manage P3. Sonics isn't able to dethrone. He will sit in P4. Mr. Ralph looking like the only challenger so far. He's in a lot of traffic. But there is potential for a slipstream, and he's lost an awful lot of time in the hairpin. The drivers have been talking about how much standing water is been in that hairpin all weekend, and it's very, very easy to get caught out there. And it looks like it has caught out Mr. Ralph, who will need to be at 51.5, which he does not. So it looks like everyone has finished their lap, and it could just be that man once again, Ayrton Spena, on pole position. As I believe xxkillshotzxx is also on his final lap of the session. But we'll watch our championship leader coming up to the final part of the circuit. A man who's been on absolute fiery form. A man who many have described as near damn unbeatable in this series. Will anyone stop this man today? Doesn't look like it. Will he extend his margin similar to how Lewis Hamilton did in the the Styrian Grand Prix qualifying rather of late? That's an awful lot of wheel spin, and it's cost him some time. He's 2 tenths down on his personal best. He'll come up to the line. Doesn't look like he's going to improve on it. But he did the job when it mattered. This man has struggled in qualifying. It's really been his only weakness. But not today. He doesn't improve, but he still maintains his pole position. The last man up to the line will be this man, will be xxkillshotzxx. Currently in P8, looking to see if he can improve at all. He needs to beat a 54, which he just does, but he doesn't improve his position at all. And there you have your starting grid for the Pacific Grand Prix. The guys will have a dry start, covered by one of Tokyo Expressway's many, many tunnels in its road network. That will keep them in the drive for now. But as soon as we get out that tunnel, it's going to be all wet, all guns blazing. Ayrton Spena will start on pole as he starts first in the championship. A brief countdown, and it is lights out, and away we go. Everyone getting momentarily a bogged down start. There was a bit of a movement there in the background. Ayrton Spena then is going to be leading, but he's a sitting duck in terms of the slipstream. A very, very long run to turn 1 on this circuit. It looks like Mr. Ralph already mounting a challenge on the outside. xxkillshotzxx, though, getting a double slipstream, and he actually gets pushed by Sonics into the back of Ayrton Spena. So Ayrton Spena may need turn P1 as he gets pushed from cars behind to kind of extend his advantage. But they're all coming into turn 1 now. They're going to have to be careful. It's a very tricky corner in the wet. Lots of headlights, lots of cars, lots of spray. We have a massive accident. Dougie Afroman punted into the wall and sent down to last position. We have more contact further up. Looks like xxkillshotzxx has been put in the wall as well. A very, very tricky start. A lot of cars in the same place, battling for the same space, and it's ended up in tears for Dougie Afroman and xxkillshotzxx. Ayrton Spena leads from Mr. Ralph. Just checking some settings on here because the controls are not really working. Do apologise for that. Looks like onboards are going to be disabled for the time being. A bit of a GT Sport issue once again. We love this game, don't we? Okay, so Ayrton Spena leads, getting a little bit of a twitch on in final sector, and Mr. Ralph and Sonics have had a massive crash coming out of the first sector. 2 early victims of the rain once again, and they will fall all the way down to the back of the pack. xxkillshotzxx looking for a way past, and 2 heavy contenders sent to the back of the grid very early on. Ayrton Spena now leads from Chillakilla as everyone dances and darts coming out of the very wet hairpin. A car going straight on there. Looked like xxkillshotzxx got a helping hand into the wall. He somehow managed to keep it going, and very wet, very slippery. The first wet race of the season, and a lot of people being caught out just by overestimating the amount of grip that they actually have. You can see Avanza 7 getting a very good run on Moju. The battle for third place. They're going to go side by side through the tunnel out onto the racetrack. And it looks like Avanza 7 is all guns blazing here. He's in a prime position to take P3 away from Moju, but Moju's still trying to hang it around the outside. This will be a very interesting one because this is a very inside line favoured corner. So if Avanza 7 can just keep his composure, get on the anchors, he'll get the move done. And he does in nice style, but Moju getting an awesome switchback. He will have the opportunity to go back down the inside. inside contact between the two. Both of them scrape the wall. Moju holds on to P3 with a switchback manoeuvre, and Avanzo 7 will have to try find another way past. He's going to try it down the inside to the next corner. That's a very broad move. Side by side, still looking for a way past the two Brits. Absolutely side by side. This is really not an overtaking opportunity though. Avanzo 7 realises that and falls back. And a man who's raced for 24 hours straight over the weekend quickly realises that attrition is key in conditions like this. Ayrton Spencer with a very comfortable lead over Chiller Killer in P2. Moju battling for his first podium in the ISR series. He will have to fight off Avanzo 7 for that. Philly Wall has made it all the way from 13th to 5th in the first couple of laps. Great start from him. The wild card making a good debut as well in the form of Warrior close behind. It's Skull TVD under enormous pressure there from Schechtefer, the Diamantinero driver, trying to go defensive. He's got to go try down the inside. This is a very wet part of the circuit, so they've got to be so careful. And Schechtefer just can't get the thing slowed down, and that's going to allow Skull TVD to undercut. Lenny TVD is going to undercut the pair of them. Actually made a little bit of contact with the two and shoved them both at the racing line. Lenny PVD picks up 2 positions in one corner. Now Skull TVD and Schechtefer side by side, banging wheels with each other, coming down into the tunnel section, the only real drive-by of the circuit. Schechtefer slots in behind Skull TVD, and we'll have to follow him through. You can already see that there might be a comeback challenge on them. It's going to be Skull TVD and Lenny TVD, the teammates side by side, and then Schechtefer's going to make it 3 wide down the start, finish straight into the very tricky turn 1. Lenny TVD pulls out of it a bit early, and that might prove to be the smartest of the moves. Who's ahead going into this section? It's going to be all kinds of cars. 3 wide. This is not a 3 wide corner. Schechtefer holds it around the outside. Lenny TVD and Skull TVD both getting better cutbacks, and Lenny TVD is going to throw it back down the inside and take the position. Schechtefer will stay down in P8. Skull TBD, the big going to be the one playing defensive, as Schechtefer is closing in on him. Dougie Afroman not too far behind him either. Cars reaching almost 200 miles an hour, coming onto a very wet bit of tarmac. These guys are absolutely balls to the wall at this point. Great driving from all of them just to keep the car on the circuit at this point. So fantastic driving from these guys to try keep this all from happening. The guys are going side by side already. Philly won under immense pressure from Lenny TBD. Lenny TBD squeezing down the inside, a little bit of contact, and that's going to force Philly Woolley wide. He's managing to hold on. Lenny TBD doing his signature move, sending it back down the inside of the second part of that circuit. Fantastic racing in the rain here. Look at this train. We've got 2 very fast drives of Sonics and Mr. Ralph stuck behind us as well. And we can actually see Sonics is trying to make a move now and has made the move on Dougie Afroman. Very advantageous there is the word that I am looking for. Lenny TBD leads through the S-bend. Looks like he gets a little bit of contact on the wall. Wall penalties are on to discourage wall riding from these drivers, of course. Philly Wall 6 is still battling away with Lenny TBD coming into the next section. Lenny TBD has really lost out there. He's into the wall. Lots and lots of contact. Sonic's trying to go down the inside of Lenny TBD now, and he manages to pull it off. Mr. Ralph applying pressure now to Dougie Afroman. Will look like he'll try to go around the outside. That'll be very tricky for him to do. I think we had cars side by side. We do. It's Sonics and Philly Wool still fighting it out. And Lenny TBD has been spun. So somewhere along the line, Lenny TBD has gone round. He's facing the opposite direction. xxkillshotzxx will now be the one to pass him. And some contact maybe somewhere in that hairpin has spun Lenny TBD round and taken him out of the game. Philly Wool and Sonics, though, still going at it down the start, finish straight. Fantastic driving from these gentlemen in the slipstream. Fully committed is Philly Wool. He'll be looking for an opportunity to get past Sonics, and he just looks like he's bump drafting at the moment. Not really comfortable to pull out. Doesn't really want to pull out too early. Is he just going to let Sonics go, or will he try and mount an attack? He's going to go to the outside line, so he's genuinely considering the move here. Who's going to be earliest on the anchors? It looks like Sonics is the earliest to break. Philly Wool just goes wide, hits the wall, and that pretty much is all said and done, but Sonics hit the wall as well there. Gets away with it, luckily for him. Dougie Afroman P8, as we can see Schechtefer under pressure from Mr. Ralph. Mr. Ralph squeezes through into P9 in his pursuit to try keep up with Sonics ahead of him. Excuse me, Lenny TBD at xxkillshotzxx battling for all but last place at the moment too. see the crazy battle still going on between Dougie Afram and Mr. Ralph and Schecterfer, all battling over 8th position at the moment. Still looking for an opportunity. Maybe this is the opportunity he's been looking for. Down the inside into the right-hander, turning in, and Dougie Afram flashing his lights. Was he not too happy with Mr. Ralph's move there? Alf up into P8. Dougie Afram under pressure from Schecterfer as a result. Schecterfer scraping the outside wall. We'll have to try and go the long way around. Maybe some form of switchback on the cars. Certainly looks like that's what he's setting up for. Is he going to pull it off? Oh, Mr. Ralph has got very eager on the throttle, almost put himself around. That's going to put himself under pressure from Dougie Afram. He's still swirling, and Schecterfer's been caught up in it, and Schecterfer's gone spinning into the wall now. Chaotic scenes continue here in Tokyo. Side by side, xxkillshotzxx has found his way up to P5, challenging the Malaysian wildcard of Warrior. Coming into turn 1. The gentleman Lenny TVD's traction out of that corner. Really struggling now is Carrera. Panzer 7 taking purple sectors, starting to get to a bit of a groove. However, xxkillshotzxx is still able to unshake Warrior. As we ride on board with the wild card in his Red Bull liveried Red Bull. Through the middle sector we come. And this is where xxkillshotzxx begins to pull away slightly. Good effort from him. Chiller is gaining slightly on Ayrton Spener. And Spener could just be taking it easy though, doesn't want to risk anything. He's been handed a very good result here. Now next up for the Malaysian wildcard is Mr. Alf, the second front runner to have issues earlier in the Grand Prix. We'll look for a way. What happened to xxkillshotzxx? I think xxkillshotzxx has had a spin off camera somewhere that we didn't see. He's actually dropped all the way to P9. So all his hard work has been undone. And now it's Mr. Alf, the man on the comeback. His tyres looking very degraded, very broken, xxkillshotzxx, so he might be the first of our guys to pit. Mr. Alf's actually going to opt for the inside line because he's pitting. Mr. Alf, first man then into pit lane. Will this trigger a domino effect? Because xxkillshotzxx is going to come in. Schecterfer is going to follow xxkillshotzxx in. So we do have our first pit stops of the Pacific Grand Prix, and it's Mr. Alf who pulls the trigger. And is that Schecterfer has actually jumped xxkillshotzxx in the pits? Fantastic stuff by Diamante Nero to pull that off, but unfortunately for them, they're now going to be under a lot of slipstream pressure from WSR, who looks like they're just going to bump draft each other down the start-finish straight before xxkillshotzxx will inevitably pull to the inside to try and get the move done into turn 1. And there the move will come. Down the inside, job's a good one. Easy does it. So Ayrton Spener now under a lot of pressure from Chillakiller. And is that Ayrton Spener gone? It is! The race leader goes for a spin. Chillakiller assumes the lead of the Pacific Grand Prix, and Ayrton Spener's gone for 2 spins! He's actually spun, recovering it. Huge mistake here from the race and championship leader. Really fell victim to the hairpin there with so much standing water. He's going to take the opportunity to pit to get some new tyres on the back of that spin. Chillakiller looking in very fine form at the moment. Panzer 7 will creep up into P2. Ayrton Spener going for a long pit stop. And away he goes. Let's go Chiller, hashtag Team Disconnect in the chat. Welcome along King No Skill. Bjorn being able to pull it off. They've both gone wide. Quick shots 10 then up into P12. So, Panzer 7 and Chillakiller both still going, but they're both very close to having to pit, of course. Just on fuel alone, you can see on the bottom left there, xxkillshotzxx will be needing to pit very shortly. Avanza 7 not too far behind. Avanza 7's been doing a good job on fuel conservation, actually. Moju will need to find somewhere to serve 6 seconds worth of penalties. See Dougie Aframan of ART Aguri now in pit lane. A longer stop for him. A very enclosed space in the pit lane. Very claustrophobic in here. Lenny TBD is the next man to follow him in. So, xxkillshotzxx looking like it's a bit unsteady through the last part. Tyres are getting a bit wet, a bit warm. Ayrton Spencer on a charge to try and make up for his big mistake. Moju really setting some good pace too. Again, he needs to find somewhere to serve 6 seconds worth of penalties. Pinal did actually just go fastest as well through that sector, so great stuff from these guys, really pushing on the limit now. These guys performing very, very well in a wet on low fuel, of course. We do have yellow flags. Oh, and it's Avanza 7. Avanza 7 has made a mistake somewhere. He will drop down into P4 as he tries to get back up to speed. He's not the first man to make a mistake, he won't be the last. He's just got to keep his composure and keep going. xxkillshotzxx, the only man really bulletproof today. Into the pit lane, will be in for a big fuel stop. Now we'll see where he comes out in relation to Ayrton Spencer trying the undercut. So Ayrton Spencer coming out of the final hairpin now. xxkillshotzxx still in the pits. Ayrton Spencer just about to come into the tunnel, and xxkillshotzxx is still in the pits. Here we go then. ART Aguri release their man, and it'll be a similar situation to what we just saw with xxkillshotzxx and Skull TBD, and it's not even close actually. No, I'm completely wrong. Great stuff there. ART Aguri really in the driver's seat of this Grand Prix now. Ayrton Spencer is actually on intermediate tyres. Ayrton Spencer is going for something completely different here. And I'm not sure if this is going to work out for him. We'll have to wait and see. That's a very, very bold strategy. Everyone else is going wet. Ayrton Spencer's gone for intermediate. Mr. Ralph doing a very good job. Is up into P3 as we have Philly Wool, Vanza 7, Moju and Warrior all completing their first drop of the Grand Prix. You can see Moju coming out not too far behind. Sonic's catching these guys up. He pitted quite a lot earlier, as you remember. xxkillshotzxx being chased down by Warrior, who comes out behind him from pit lane. So at the back it's Skull TBD and xxkillshotzxx, both struggling, and xxkillshotzxx still having to pit. Really been a race to forget here for the American. xxkillshotzxx leads from Ayrton Spencer. Trying an alternate strategy on the intermediate tyres. Likely as a result of his earlier spin. Wanted to try something different to try and get himself back into the Grand Prix. Inter should be quicker when only track is wet and no raining. It is still raining. We've noticed these Inters beat quicks through some part of the circuits, but like there, for example, as Ayrton Spencer goes into the wall again, they're just not up to the task in the hairpin. There's too much standing water, and they just can't do it. So Ayrton Spencer, and no doubt next pit stop we'll see him back on the wet tyres. As we can see Mr. Ralph indicating, is he coming into the pits already? He's not, he's just driving around with his indicator on. Vanzo 7. And we can see a battle here then, Sonics versus Moju for P5. Moju in a better position in terms of strategy, but Sonics is really fired up and pushing at the moment. So we ride on board with a WSR. Just bump drafting essentially. This seems to be the strategy here. Bump draft so you don't have to get out of the slipstream and the other guy can't slipstream right back past you until the end of the straight effectively. Where you can then just pull to the inside like so. Did he bump him at the wrong time there? Because Moju's still quite considerably ahead. So we come into turn 1. Goes up the inside of Moju, does the American. Up into P5. Next up for Sonics is Avanza 7. Vanzo will be looking to get back in his stride after his early mistake. I would say we've seen a lot of cars make mistakes here today. So definitely do not feel bad if you're a fan of someone who makes a mistake here today, because it is so easy to do. We've seen our near bulletproof championship leader really struggle in the rain. And now Chillakiller is looking like the strongest of anyone for his second ISR victory. Excuse me, 16 laps on the clock. Mr. Ralph always looks like he's going to come into the pits, but he's not. Let's see, Sonics is slightly gaining on Vanza 7. That is definitely a gap to watch. Lenny TBD really ragging the edge of his ISR machine to try gain the last position for the points. Chillakiller is actually trying to lap Skull TBD. Skull TBD lets him through as he should. Good job. Skull TBD really struggling for grip at the moment. Mr. Ralph setting purple sectors will be worrying for Ayrton Spenner. However, Mr. Ralph on a very alternate strategy. Not a lot of fuel left in the tank. Will be pitting again very shortly, I would imagine. Right on board with the Spaniard. So as the rest of the grid begins to spread out just a little bit, we'll focus on Scheckterfer, who's the man closest to his target. His target being Moju ahead. Moju really struggling at the moment. Scheckterfer flying. And try search for his way past. The hairpin we come. Gets on the throttle once again. And he should have a very decent slipstream coming into turn 1. Just within a second. And that should be good enough for him. He'll push and push and push, I'm sure. Really trying to get all the slipstream he can. Closing. And he's going to be right there. Does Moju offer any defence? Can he offer any defence? Oh, he does. He does go defensive. And Scheckterfer, really had to get out of the throttle there. Just to prevent an accident. Moju skidding a little bit wide. That'll give the undercut to Scheckterfer. Down the inside for turn 2. And he should hold on to the position, and he does. Moju demoted to P7. But he's still right there, trying to search for any way back past the Diamante Nero. Right up behind him, really doesn't want to give up. But in the end, the Sonics now follows in the Spaniard. We'll see how much fuel he puts in. Scheckterfer also in for Diamante Nero. It feels like an age for these drivers for that fuel to be done, and there you go. So Sonics has fully fueled to the end. Has Scheckterfer? That's something I'm interested to see. I feel like he has, and he has, yes. So Mr. Ralph once again trying something very alternate to everybody else. But Mr. Ralph, from that strategy, has benefited because it's put him right on the rear of Avanza 7, who's still halfway through his stint. So this is looking good so far for Mr. Ralph. He'll have to make up that fuel somewhere. He won't just be flat out to the end. He'll have to think about fuel at some point too, I'm sure. But it's put him in with a fighting chance for the podium, at least at this stage of the Grand Prix. riding on board with the Spaniard as Avanza 7 goes very wide, hits the wall. That's going to upset his run. And ghosting. Yes, ghosting. That's a very interesting one to talk about. Ayrton Spinner into the pits. I'm pretty sure we'll see him back on the wet compound tyre. Ghosting, one of them things. I'm not really sure how we can describe it, but it's a Gran Turismo controlled thing. So unfortunately, Mr. Alf was able to drive through him there, but Avanza really putting up a fight to gain the position back. Skull TVD leaves the session, so a bad Grand Prix for the ISR driver. And Ayrton Spinner is back out on the wets. Abandons the intermediate strategy. Just wasn't for him. Avanza 7 and Mr. Ralph side by side, battling for P3. Coming up toward turn 1, they're going to be side by side the entire way. Mr. Ralph pulls back in behind, and he's just going to use that to pull back to the outside. Who knows who's going to be leading this coming into turn 1? It's going to be very close. It looks like Avanza 7 is going to hold on for now. Any switchback attempts from Mr. Ralph? No, there's not, but there is a little bit of a drift, which means Mr. Ralph will be able to go around the outside. Will it? No. Avanza 7 gets a switchback. Appears back on the outside, but now Mr. Ralph is the inside for the next corner. But it looks like Avanza 7 has to run. Holds on to P3. Great defending there from the Scotsman against the Spaniard. Still going to be super close between these two, though, especially through this very fast middle sector. Mr. Ralph getting very squarely on the brakes. Mr. Ralph makes contact with a wall, earns himself a wall collision penalty. Again, to remind any of you that aren't really aware of the wall collision penalties, they are there to discourage wall riding, as it does gain a huge advantage if left unchecked at this circuit. We do have some cars battling down here for position. This is a battle between Warrior, Lenny and Philly. Oh, and was there contact between Philly and Warrior there? Warrior goes around. It certainly looked like some kind of lag at the very least. Warrior has become the victim of that, however. And Lenny also has been sent for a spin, so not been a drama-free race for Lenny at all. He's really been in the wars today, as has xxkillshotzxx. So we can see now Sonic's closing in on Dougie Afroman. And this is the battle for P6. Very close battle behind, no, for Schechter and Warrior. Schechter getting a drive and slipstream. And let's see what Schechter does. Does he opt to bump draft, or does he just try and go for the overtake? Yes! He just tries to go straight away for the overtake, get the job done nice and early. And then we go side by side, but he'll want to hold up Mr. Ralph as much as he can, because it comes, obviously, all comes back into play later in the Grand Prix. It really helps Avanza 7 to hold up Mr. Ralph now, because Mr. Ralph isn't fueled to the end of the Grand Prix. He does at some point need to make another stop. So to waste as much of time of his now as he can while he has fresh tyres is a very strong and smart strategy from Avanza 7 here. And he'll want to employ that for as long as possible. Skull TVD says he gets stuck in the pits. This is a very unique bug that we have not seen this season thus far. Very unlucky if that is the case for Skull TVD. So Avanza 7 successfully pulls the move from Mr. Ralph. Of course, has to pit at the end of his lap anyway, but he's doing what he needs to do in interfering with the Spaniard's race strategy. These guys are battling for the podium at the end of the day, and it helps Avanza, like I said, to be as much of a thorn in the side as possible. We do have yellow flags. I'm not sure what that's for, actually. I'm just trying to check that. It looks like it is for xxkillshotzxx, who has given up on the Grand Prix. I'm not entirely sure what John is doing here. But here we'll probably see, yes, we do see Avanza 7 into the pits. Mr. Ralph follows him for as much slipstream as he can, and then lets the Scotsman go. If fresh tyres and fuel to the end. 10 laps to go. And XXkillshotzxx has never looked in a strong position. He's got one final pit stop to do. His lap times have been incredible, to be quite frank. 150, high 150s, while his competition is doing low 51s. However, he is finding some time now. The ride on board. Will XXkillshotzxx decide to pit this lap, or will he continue going? Look how much he's fighting to get on the throttle of the ART Aguri. And we'll see, will he continue for another lap? Will he get as much out of this tank as he possibly can? Yes, he will. He'll maximise every last drop. So XXkillshotzxx leads from Ayrton Spenner, who is setting purple sectors. Starting to find his rhythm a bit now. That could come into play. He's not out of the race entirely. Like we say, I mean, there's still a lot of people to pit. So the grid is definitely not set in stone for the end of this Grand Prix, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you that for free. Is this a battle? It is, between Scheckter and Philly Wall. They were that close. They were actually inside of each other for a while there. Really drifting through the middle sector. Both of these cars almost synchronised. Scheckter has found himself up into P7. Really been making moves. The grid, though, like we say, I've said it a million times, it's not set in stone. A lot of pit stops, a lot of final pit stops are still yet to come. So while you look, and it looks like Dougie Afroman is having a day of doom and gloom, he's fueled to the end. Probably even more than he needs to the end. And a lot of cars are not even fueled to the end of this lap, so that will be very interesting to see how that all plays out. Ayrton Spenner was able to set a very good time, but it wasn't the fastest time. It was, however, faster than the man in front of him, which is just the direction he needs to keep going. Mr. Ralph, of course, will be pitting very shortly, soon as will Moju. And then xxkillshotzxx is going to be very, very tight to the end of the Grand Prix. He may have to make a splash and dash, which will really help out Avanza. XXkillshotzxx into pit lane. If it only was that easy in real life. And he will fuel up for as much fuel as he needs to do 9 laps of this Grand Prix. Ayrton Spenner is in the hairpin. That's just for reference on your map. So XXkillshotzxx will likely still come out quite a ways ahead of him. But it will be very interesting to see just what the gap is towards the end of the Grand Prix. So here comes XXkillshotzxx. Fueled up to the end of the Grand Prix. Fresh set of boots. And he is away as Ayrton Spenner only just comes into the tunnel now. XXkillshotzxx in very good control. He just needs to not make any mistakes going forward. We're definitely going to see Mojo and Mr. Alf in the pit shortly, I think. Be interested to see if Mojo and if Mr. Alf goes for a pit now, or does he squeeze out an extra lap like we've seen XXkillshotzxx do? He's going to go for the extra lap. Squeeze out as much out of that tank as he can. Mojo doesn't really have the pleasure of that. Mojo needs to pit this lap, and xxkillshotzxx will be glad to hear that news, I'm sure, because he's been stuck behind him for the past lap and a half. Lap and a half? What even is that? In the slipstream we go, and there you will see Mojo into pit lane. xxkillshotzxx continues. So there is the first of the battles that Avanza 7 has to worry about gone. 11 seconds is the gap, with 8 laps to go. Now, both of these drivers are absolutely flying. Ayrton Spenner did a 50.2. Really digging deep for that lap time. He needs to hope, though, because I think XXkillshotzx's pace is good enough to keep him in the lead of the Grand Prix. He needs to hope for a crack from the young driver. He needs to hope his experience will pull him out of where he is. Ayrton Spenner is just going to continue pushing with all he's worth. I'm not sure. Is Ayrton Spenner fueled to the end? Will he get 8 laps out of that? 7 laps now at the end of this lap out of that tank? I'm not entirely certain he will. Very confused with Ayrton Spenner's tank at the moment. I'll have to see how that one pans out. We'll definitely see Mr. Alf in the pits after this one. xxkillshotzxx is in a similar situation to Ayrton Spenner. We may see a splash and dash towards the end of the Grand Prix. Mojo is now trying to hunt back down Scheckter Interesting that Moju's decided not to get new tyres there. He's just decided fuel only was what he wanted to do. And that's what he's gone for. Lenny TBD is being lapped, of course, by Ayrton Spencer. Gap is 10.6 seconds at the front. And now Mr. Alf into the pits for his final pit stop. Where is Avanza 7? And Mr. Alf actually coming out in a solid position. He's actually looking like he's going to clear both Sonics and Avanza 7. So some very good laps from Mr. Alf have put him firmly in P3. Avanza 7 still on the cards for P4 though, at the very least. And here comes the first of the splash and dashes. And just watch this, you'll see it'll be new tyres. And literally we'll wait for about 5 seconds. I wouldn't expect any more than 5 seconds worth of fuel. It's actually quite a long stop, so how much fuel does he need? Interesting that he still needs to fill up to about 3/4 of a tank. That gives us an idea of how much fuel these guys need to go to the end of the Grand Prix. Very, very interesting. So Chiller Killer leads comfortably from Ayrton Spencer and Mr. Alf. Ayrton Spencer now pits, so here comes the splash and dash. Ayrton Spencer, fresh tyres, and that is all but done. Unless there's a drastic error from Chiller Killer. Ayrton Spencer looks like he is settled for second place. Fuel looks like it was the big dictator there. And he'll be kicking himself for those accidents earlier in the Grand Prix, I'm sure. With 7 laps remaining of the Pacific Grand Prix. We search desperate. Let's ride on board with him then. Let's see just how he's got himself into this position. Really been putting the work in. And he just looks so comfortable through the middle sector. Going for a personal best. Not quite fast enough to topple that titanic lap time of a 50.2. Oh, but that was almost a bit spin. That was almost a mistake that he did not need. So pushing a little bit too hard there. Just needs to be careful. Remind himself of what situation he's actually in. Very slippery out that final hairpin, as you can see. And he'll improve on his personal best, I'm sure, but I don't think he's going to beat Spen's lap time by any stretch of the imagination at this point. But he doesn't need to. He's beat him on track. That's all he needed to do. Up to the line for a 50.7. Slightly improves on his PB. Mr. Alf comfortable in P3. Is there anyone in close proximity? Not really. Lenny TBD trying to close down Warrior is about the only battle we have, but he has 4.9 seconds of penalties worth to contend with. Is this Philly Wool being lapped by Chiller Killer? Yes, it is. Riding on board with Ayrton Spencer. He's been trying his utmost. He's just not matching Chiller Killer for pace either right now. So Chiller Killer really in a groove. And it'll look like it'll have to be P2 today for Ayrton Spence. Still, the heavyweight favourite to win the title. So I'm sure he'll be very happy with that. But, of course, obviously, you know what it's like being a racer. You want to win every race if you can. And every race stings when you don't win. And I'm sure he'll be beating himself up. But in terms of the championship, it's not necessarily a bad day. You're only losing points to third. And it's really a bit too late in the championship for anyone to do anything. We've just, you know, 3 rounds remaining, including this one. The last few rounds, of course, remaining 3 rounds after today. Just to clarify, that we'll be travelling to Dragon Trail Seaside, Laguna Seca, and then we'll be finishing off at Interlagos for the final of the ISR Red Bull World Series. What a fantastic debut season it's been, and I'm sure it's a series that we'll return to often. What a great season it's been. What a great season it has been to commentate. Unfortunately, we missed some of the better rounds due to issues, but we're always working to get them fixed, I'm sure. How big is Spencer's point gap in the standings? Well, King knows skill. Yeah. So in terms, coming into this Grand Prix, Ayrton Spencer's absolute monstrous gap is as follows. We're just getting it up now. It's just not loading very quickly. He has a monstrous gap of around 46 points. Yeah, so let that sink in. 46 points is the gap for Ayrton Spence at the top of the table. Behind him is Sonics. So Ayrton Spence is on 176 points. And Sonics is on 130. And then behind Sonics is Chillakiller on 115. So Chillakiller will likely take second place in the standings today with this result. So the man really under pressure today is Sonics. A really bad result for him is going to cost him P2 in the standings, and he's going to have to go on the offensive for the remaining 3 rounds at Dragon Trail, Laguna Seca and Interlagos to try and claw that time back. Because Chillakiller, in the second half of the season, he's really found his footing. You know, he had some good results in the early season, never really had the consistency though, and definitely is something that he has found in the second half, and it puts this man under a little bit of pressure in the final couple of rounds. But a near faultless drive by Chillakiller today. I don't think anybody, if I'm being honest, I don't think anybody can be mad at this victory, because he's just looked like such a wise head on young shoulders. He has done everything right in some of the most tricky conditions. Well, the trickiest of conditions we've had all season. And he's consistently been on the pace, been where he needs to be as a driver. And a second IXR victory looms in just 2 laps' time. For ART Aguri, it will be their only 3rd ever win in ISR history. To break that down for you, ART's first ever victory came in the form of Douglas Anderson at the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg in the ISR AIC Season 2 on Automobilista. Their second win came courtesy of this man, Chillakiller, in the ISR Red Bull World Series at Spa-Francorchamps, and looks like in Tokyo he's set to take the team's 3rd. The team inspired by Super Aguri when it comes to their livery will love to take a victory potentially on what they could consider home soil. And just have a look at this traffic for Ayrton Spence. He's watching Lenny TVD get all loose, but Lenny TVD's in hot pursuit of Peanut Warrior, so Lenny TVD won't really want to give up. If Lenny's smart though, he can use Ayrton Spence. He can use him to slipstream, and when Ayrton Spence is lapping Warrior, he can smartly use that to overtake him, just like we saw Max Verstappen do in Monaco all those years ago. And he used it to overtake Grosjean when he was in the Toro Rosso course. But Ayrton Spence is actually just bump drafting Lenny TVD. And I'm sure this will help him. How long before Ayrton Spence decides he wants past it. He's going to go to the outside. It's a good move from Ayrton Spence. Although, be it, he gets a little bit of a twitch. And it is him, obviously, trying to lap Lenny TVD. Now he's got to lap Warrior. And Lenny TVD will be watching this with keen eyes, because it can help him. And I can't see who's who. Is that Spinner on the inside? Or was that Warrior into the wall? I think that was Warrior into the wall. It was. And all of a sudden Lenny TVD is in contention here for the final point with a massive amount of penalties. So I think he'll lose it on penalties anyway. Oh, especially if he keeps doing things like that. Looking for a way past in principle though. Door shut by Pinar Warrior. Into the final sector, down toward the hairpin. I think that was Ayrton Spence actually went for a spin. Oh dear. A rough day for Ayrton Spence. Warrior now goes very wide. ATBD still tries to find a way past, but oh no! Gets it all wrong on the... Oh no, all wrong on the throttle. Loses all the time. He's worked so hard to achieve. Nothing doing then. The final lap for Chiller Killer. Mr. Alf has fueled this perfectly. He will have one lap of fuel to start the final lap with. Incredible. Advance at 7. Very close on fuel too. Man? It was Dougie Afroman. Oh no, it wasn't. That was our man. That was our race leader. What has happened to Chiller Killer? A huge spin. Our first mistake of the Grand Prix comes on the final lap. A 5-second penalty is awarded for a wall collision. He will look to get rid of that. Ayrton Spencer's not overly far behind, but he'll probably be able to get rid of that penalty coming out of the hairpin or something. Just slowly let it fade away. But it's taking a long time to see a crack in the armour of Chiller Killer, and it comes on the final lap of the Grand Prix. Otherwise, he's been absolutely bulletproof. He's trying to serve his penalty early. The game is not helping him out here. Ayrton Spence pushing like a monster at the sniff of blood, like the shark we've come to expect him. Out of the final corner then. It has been this man all day long. Chiller Killer takes his second victory in the ISR Red Bull World Series. How about that? And he'll serve almost all of his penalty up to the line. He'll be very happy with that. He has been absolutely bulletproof by that final lap today. This man will be kicking himself, but he still maintains a very healthy gap in the championship. Ayrton Spence up to the line. Opting to serve his penalty over the line too. P2 for the Welshman. And in Mr. Alf, look at that fuel. Absolute crazy amount of fuel at the end there. A swiver. Fuel strategy perfection overcomes a massive accident on the first lap to come from 11th to 3rd. Great drive by him. Oh, and Sonics has gone spinning on the final corner of the final lap, but so has Merju. 5th and 6th. Massive mistakes. And in a race of attrition, everyone seems to crack on the final lap. Luckily for Sonics, his title rival was nowhere near, but Schechtefer has slipped up into P6 as a result. And Sonic TBD crosses the line. Sonic TBD? Sonics, sorry, just crosses the line. I'm not sure why I got that confused. I think I was getting that confused with Skull TBD. Apologies there. Schechtefer had the pace and he had the consistency, didn't he, when he mattered. Gets him a nice midfield finish of P6. Steals P6 on the final lap of the Grand Prix, away from Merju, who makes a huge mistake. We saw him going backwards. And actually, this could be very close in terms of his penalty. Very, very close indeed. Here comes Dougie Afroman to steal P7 at the death as Moju has to slam on and serve all of those penalties. Philly Wool will be the next one to the line, also serving all of his penalties. And ladies and gentlemen, that is all she wrote. XXkillshotzxx is your victor of the Pacific Grand Prix. What a fantastic race. What an opportunistic move by Dougie Afroman to steal P7 at the death there. Great racing all round, ladies and gentlemen. XXkillshotzxx is your victor. A man who was absolutely bulletproof. Apart from the blooper on the final lap, we'll say that much. He'll be very happy with that performance. His second win in the ISR, ART's third ever win in the ISR. And they do it in the home country of where their livery for this season, the ART Aguri name, inspired by the Japanese backmarker favourites of Super Aguri. Bring one home today in home turf. XXkillshotzxx really starting to find his form. Really starting to be the man he needs to be. XXkillshotzxx in a very good opportunity now. Sonic's under a lot of pressure into the final 3 rounds if he can keep up this pace. XXkillshotzxx can easily take seconds away here, and what a way to start it. A wonderful victory today. He'll be very happy with that one, I'm sure. From third to first, great driving all round, ladies and gentlemen. That is my driver of the day, just for the pure amount of mistakes he did not make. An honourable shout out as well to our man, Mr. Ralph, coming from 11th all the way to third as well. Great driving from him. Great driving all round. That has been another round, ladies and gentlemen, of the ISR Red Bull World Series. Thank you so much for joining us. Join us next time for, I believe, we'll be in the Croatian Grand Prix of Dragon Trail Seaside. We saw some amazing racing there in the FIA Nations Cup. Will we see the same again in the ISR Red Bull World Series? Only one way to find out, and that is by tuning in the same time next week. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. Have a good one. Goodbye.